Hi guys, Samsung's greatest Galaxy Note 10 Plus, iPhone's latest iPhone 11 Max Pro, and Huawei's trusted P30 Pro. All these three smartphones put together triple camera setup. I'm gonna put these phones against each other and put them through their paces to understand how good the new iPhone's camera is against the Galaxy Note 10 Plus and Huawei's P30 Pro. Let's check them out. So now we are in the selfie mode of all these three cameras. Note 10 Plus and iPhone can actually record in 4K and P30 Pro cannot record in 4K. So just see how the color tones are coming out. I prefer the color tones on Samsung, but because it's kind of saturated, it depends, it's personal preference. Some people like the saturated tones and some people do not. However, iPhone's capturing the maximum detail. It's the most bright video of all three. P30 Pro, not really good. It's not doing a great job here. Yeah, so you see, this is how colors look like from the selfie camera. Now let us try to understand the stabilization, how the stabilization in all these three phones. At this moment, Galaxy Note 10 Plus is running on 4K 60 FPS. iPhone's also running at 4K 60 FPS, but Huawei's P30 Pro can go up to maximum 4K 30 FPS. I'm just walking at a very average speed at the moment. Let me try to brisk walk. Now I'm walking a little faster. Let me try to just jog a little and see how it goes. All right, so that's pretty much it. This was 4K 60 FPS, but Huawei P30 Pro is only 30 FPS. So this was for the stabilization test. So now I've changed the setting for all three phones to 1080p 30 FPS just to see how the quality differentiates between 4K and 1080p, just to understand. Saturation's coming out quite strong on Samsung. iPhone's capturing pretty true colors, and Huawei P30 Pro is kind of generating its own color palette for some reason. Now this is a sample for wide angle at 1080p 30 FPS from all these three phones. This is the wide angle camera recording, just to see how the colors are on all these three phones. Samsung continues to show the saturated shades. iPhone's pretty clear, pretty close to the true tones of the scene. And Huawei is kind of okay here. It's not very far from actual natural color tones. It's pretty close. Let's go to the 1x optical zoom. And this is how it looks like. This is how it differentiates between wide and 1x optical zoom. The same scene. Yeah. So this is how the main camera is.
Now moving on from the videos, let us try to look at how these cameras capture pictures. Now pictures continue to show the same examples. iPhone was pretty close to the actual detail of the scene. Samsung was pushing out these brilliant, vibrant, contrasty pictures, which I personally prefer. But that's a personal thing. Maybe you like the natural scenes from the iPhone, or you like the more sharp scenes from the Huawei P30 Pro. All three cameras were capturing scenes brilliantly, and in isolation, all of these phones have a capable smartphone camera setup. Huawei pushes ahead in terms of capturing more detail in the pictures. iPhone is true to the scene, and Samsung pushed out more vibrant pictures ready for your social media upload. Now when you compare the high dynamic range on all these three smartphones, you would see that Huawei's P30 Pro and Apple's iPhone 11 Pro, both of them are pretty close to each other. However, Samsung pushes ahead in terms of capturing more detail in the foreground as well as in the background. And this was apparent in this shot as well. When you're directly pointing at the sun and you look into the shadows, which phone has the maximum detail? I'm not saying that any of these phones is superior than the other. The only point that I'm trying to make here is that which of these is capturing better details in the shadows against harsh sunlight. It is tough to call a winner during daylight because all of these phones are capturing brilliant photos when there is sufficient light in the scene. Whether it's colors, whether it's sharpness, whether it's texture, all three phones are almost neck to neck with each other. Even when you go very close to the subject, you would see that all these phones have very good detail in the picture. But I would say Huawei's P30 Pro captures better macro pictures when you go very close to the subject. The texture and the depth is much better in the pictures when compared to the other two phones here. Although the difference in color tones is apparent. Huawei is slightly on the warmer side, iPhone's pretty much on the natural side, and Samsung's on the punchier saturated side. Now all these phones have triple camera setup. A wide angle, a telephoto lens, and the ultra wide angle. So let's see the telephoto example here. All three pictures right now are clicked through their main camera sensor, and now let's try to move into the 2x optical zoom. And right now we are at the 2x optical zoom. And let's try to push them further, and now we move towards the 10x digital zoom. Where Apple's iPhone and Samsung's Note stop at 10x digital zoom, Huawei zips past them and goes all the way to 50x digital zoom. Although it becomes very difficult to focus on the detail that you're trying to capture with 50x digital zoom, but yeah, Huawei has the feature and maybe you would want to use it. Let's move over to selfies now. I would say in terms of selfies, the iPhone's output was the best amongst the three. The skin tones are pretty natural and the harsh light is controlled really well in the scene. With respect to selfies, Samsung's Note 10 Plus and Apple's iPhone 11 Pro, both of these phones offer a wide angle as well. But you see the wide angle here on Samsung's Note 10 Plus and Apple's 11 Pro is actually comparable to Huawei's picture, because how Samsung and Apple handle wide angle is actually they crop in the actual scene, and when you go into the wide angle they show you more of the scene. All three phones offer portrait shots in the selfies as well and actually add some interesting effects to your selfies. Feature wise, all three phones have great selfie cameras, but the quality wise I would say Samsung and Apple's offering is slightly ahead of Huawei's offering here. Now since all these phones have three lenses to take pictures from: telephoto lens, wide angle lens and the ultra wide angle lens. So let us try to understand how different the picture looks when you click from an individual lens. This is an example from Huawei's three different lenses. You can see the ultra wide angle lens does not capture the same amount of color and detail as the other two lenses have captured. Let us try to see how it differentiates on the iPhone. You can again see that it is not exactly same across all three lenses. Wide angle lens kind of sacrifices on the quality a little and has slightly different color palette. Moving over to Samsung's three different lenses, and you would see that yes, Samsung also doesn't have the exact same picture from all three different lenses. So now let's try and compare how the picture quality is from wide angle independently from all these three phones. I would say Huawei suffers a bit when it comes to wide angle photography as the scenes become very dark. iPhone continues to show the natural tones of the images and Samsung shows slightly brighter and punchier pictures. Now when you try and see in terms of skin tones from the wide angle lens, Huawei pictures are slightly dark and slightly red or purplish in the tone. iPhone has good skin tones but the picture is slightly overexposed, and Samsung continues to give you pictures which you just click and just upload on the social media, punchier and vibrant. Let us compare the portrait shots now. All three pictures were taken from the same point, from the same place, but you see how Samsung and Apple have actually cropped the images and have brought the subject forward, whereas Huawei's P30 Pro has captured more in the scene. All three pictures look good, but if I have to pixel peep and if I have to nitpick on these things, let's try to understand the edge detection, how the edge detection has worked on all these three pictures. Then you can see Samsung has done good job of the edge detection around the face but has lost around the cap. Apple has done good edge detection around the cap but has lost on the both sides of the face. Huawei's picture is not very sharp and is slightly okay with respect to the edge detection. Now this was about the time when the sun was setting in, light was becoming a challenging factor for us, and that gave me an opportunity to test Apple's new night mode versus Huawei P30 Pro's night mode and Samsung's night mode. Just to tell you how night mode pictures and non-night mode pictures differentiate, this is an example from Huawei's P30 Pro. The picture on the left is taken without the night mode and picture on the right is when you summon the night mode. So what night mode does, it takes a few seconds extra to get in more detail and more light into the shot and enhances the scene overall. So let's continue. From here on, every picture that you will see will be with the night mode on all three phones. The difference is on Samsung and Huawei there is a dedicated night mode, but on Apple's iPhone 11 Pro, the moment light gets low, the night mode automatically kicks in. However, there is a way you can turn it off, but it is not as easy as it is on the other two phones. So now all these three pictures are with the night mode on all these three cameras, and you can see right off the bat Apple's iPhone is actually capturing the most brightest images. And you can see when the light becomes a challenging factor, Huawei's P30 Pro comes as a front runner because it has the maximum sharpness in the images and has more even distribution and has much better noise control in the images. iPhone continues to show the brightest images and Samsung still continues with slightly vibrant pictures. Now like we saw that all these phones have three different lenses. Well, unfortunately Apple decided to not include the night mode with the wide angle shots. You can see the difference is apparent, how it loses against the other two phones when it comes to wide angle photography during the low light. Now this was a picture to understand how these phones capture details under the shadows. I would say Samsung has done a pretty good job in capturing details under the shadows. iPhone is slightly behind Samsung's Note 10 Plus and Huawei is coming in third here. This is surprising because otherwise Huawei's P30 Pro has continued to show great prowess in the night photography. And now when you point these cameras on some bright neon signs, you can see that how iPhone has struggled here. Although it has captured more detail around the neon sign, but I would say the exposure was handled very well on Samsung's Note 10 Plus and Huawei was not very far behind. And now this was an example how these night modes work against the moving objects. You can see the waterfall here. On Samsung, it's exactly one smooth strand of water, So you can say there is loss of texture, but the scene is very dramatic. Again, sort of ready for your social media uploads. iPhone has captured more texture but has sacrificed on the light overall and color slightly. But Huawei has done a good job. It has maintained the texture and it has also captured the color perfectly. Again, proving a point that when light is a challenge, Huawei's P30 Pro is the phone that you can trust on. Well, Huawei goes a little further. I'm not sure if this scene is actually practical for any of you, but just to drive a point home, is this that Huawei does blind photography. If you're in an absolute dark situation, Huawei P30 Pro will capture some detail and give you some color. iPhone's not very far behind but sacrifices on color completely, and Samsung's a no match here. Now let's try to have a look at a low light video. All three videos look great except for Huawei's color palette being slightly off. Well, so conclude, if you do a lot of low light photography, you are better off with Huawei's P30 Pro. If you are a purist and would want to click natural pictures, then you're better off with the iPhone 11. And if you click most of your pictures for social media, then I think you would be better off with the Samsung's Note 10 Plus. Do it a thumbs up if you liked the video, and subscribe to watch more of my content. Thank you for watching, guys. Cheers.